Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is Where Are They Now, the series where I take a look at how games have fared over the past years. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at 1 year ago, November from 1 year ago, as well as from 5 years ago, so November 2023 and November 2019. As usual, I'm going to divide each of those years up into 4 sections. The games that weren't for me, the games that I enjoyed but didn't need to own, the games I kept but then later left the collection, and the games that I kept and are still here now. I tend to find this kind of longer look back does a better job at kind of capturing how games fared over time. At the end of the day, I might play a game, be enraptured by it, enamored by it, and then hold on to it for a bit, but then what happens down the road? Do I play it? Do I table it? Do I keep it? This tends to be a bit of a larger snapshot around how games actually last, and not just the flash-in-the-pan hotness and excitement of something new, which is why I keep doing this series, because I think that kind of a longevity is actually useful if you're not constantly pulled in by the cult of the new. That said, we're going to go ahead and start off over here, starting with November 2023, the games that weren't for me. We have a whole bunch in this category. These don't necessarily mean that they are bad games, but they do mean that they were games that I didn't feel any hesitation over not needing to own them. So I played them, whatever, it is what it is, it's fine. And the second category, enjoyed but don't need to own, is where I kind of wish I could own everything, but I just have to recognize the limited time I have, and so I make decisions not to get them. So, the games that weren't for me, we have Velonimo, small game for 20th Century Games. I thought it was a cute little numbering system, playing cards, a little trick-taking, but it just didn't super impress compared to the games out there. We have Ghost Love Candy 2, another 20th Century title. It's a very fun, family-friendly title. I just have enough in that category that this one didn't impress me enough. It was okay. It was a good game, nothing crazy, nothing to write home about. Photograph was a smaller game from Madigo, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a famous Japanese designer, if I'm not mistaken, as well. His games can be very interesting. This one was a very interesting system as far as trying to rewind and line up the cards in your hand for numbering sequences. Very interesting, very clever. To me, it was a little convoluted, not interesting enough. Very interesting, not rewarding enough as I played. There was Stool Pigeon, which felt more like a mass market party game in terms of the general style of approach and more, fast-paced, fun gameplay, take that cards, but not something that's for me. We had Come On Bite Me from a small indie publisher that I just didn't enjoy. Unfortunately, that one straight up just wasn't for me. We have Tricky Goblins, another trick-taking game that, again, it was a cute game concept, but there are so many excellent trick-taking games out there. This one didn't register enough. We have Allthingi, which was a very thematic Viking game. It was a little more complicated than I would like, and not interesting enough as far as the actual gameplay decisions. We have Robbery, which I believe is a Reina Knizia title, that, again, is a little bit of a sharing the loot kind of situation, that, again, didn't impress enough. A lot of these games, I don't know what it was about this month in November, but I got a lot of small box games played that were just easy to table, and then just some were better than others, I guess. We have Epic 7 Arise. This was a big box game that definitely didn't like. I think it's possibly my lowest rated dedicated review. More often than not, when I do lower rated games, they often go into these roundup reviews, because frankly, I don't want to give games that I didn't like that much time and attention. But Epic 7 Arise was a game that I did keep trying to play. Did not like it, unfortunately. I like the premise of it, but there were way too many issues, from production issues to rulebook issues to the gameplay style. They went with a semi-co-op approach that just didn't work. A whole lot of issues with the game. I like what they were trying to do. It fell flat for me completely. And then we have Exoworld Survival, which is one that I thought was I like when you're adjusting stats in games. I like stat tracking. One that I really enjoy is actually Three Tail, which I don't know if it's in the shot. I think it's in the corner over there. Three Tail has a lot of stat tracking in it, which I really enjoy. But Exoworld Survival felt like a less fun version of that. As far as the games that I enjoyed but didn't need to own. So these are a different category. I like these enough. I, in theory, would love to add them to my collection, but I recognize that I have limited time. To that end, we have Applejack, which is another one of these Uwe Rosenberg games. It's a new Uwe Rosenberg game in the same vein as Framework and Nova Luna and Sagani. For me, Applejack was my least favorite of the three. As it stands, I only own Framework. They're all great games. I just don't need to own all of them, and I'd rather own all three over Applejack, but Applejack was still a good game, just my least favorite version of that series. We have Fika from 20th Century Games. This is a two-player game about You're trying to win 2 out of 3 rounds, if I recall correctly. It's been a while since I played this one. It was a very cute puzzle. I did enjoy this one a lot, but there's a lot of games I have in my collection in this vein, but I definitely enjoyed this one a notch above. It's also playable on Board Game Arena if you want to try it out there. There's Nemesis Retaliation. This is the time where I kind of realized that Nemesis is a series that I want to like more than I like. I have a video I did a long time ago of my first impressions of Nemesis, because my first game of Nemesis was an incredible experience. But then ever since then I had mixed experiences with the game, and I find that other dungeon crawler games give me a more reliable experience. For me, Resident Evil the board game gives me the experience that I think others get from Nemesis. I'm not trying to take away from Nemesis. Nemesis is a very popular game, very well loved. It's just not for me quite as much. I mean, again, it's not that I don't like it. I do like it, but there's so many big box dungeon crawler type games in that vein, and that just rings lower for me overall. But I still do enjoy, like Nemesis Retaliation. We had a gameplay on the channel. I enjoyed it. I'd rather play other games. We have Tiny Epic Pirates. Tiny Epic Pirates is a fun little rondel style game that has a little bit of a pick up and deliver element. I enjoyed it. The Tiny Epic series in general, I find I often want to like more than I do. I still did have fun with it. We have Lands of Galzyr. Lands of Galzyr was an excellent game that, well, that's not true. If it was an excellent game, it would be in my collection. It was a very good game that I enjoyed going through the world and seeing how things play out. The kind of ambient, why am I playing this? Are we winning? Are we not? Are we just experiencing the world? I find other games have done that better for me if I want that kind of experience. For me, I think that Spiritfire, coming up from Orange Nebula, is going to be the type of game system that I think gives me what I was hoping to get out of Lands of Galzyr. I did like Lands of Galzyr. I just need a bit more focus on the actual mechanics, and this was a little bit less so. It felt exploratory, which is great, but I'd rather play other games in that vein. We have Halls of Hegra. This is a brilliantly designed game, very, very well done. For me, there are a bunch of things that held it back a bit. It was a little too punishing. The theme is not for me, but the actual gameplay mechanics were incredibly well done as a solid solo game. I would love to own it. I have too many games I'm not playing as it is, and there were a few things that held it back for me, but I think this is one that, especially if you are a solo player, I would highly recommend you check out Halls of Hegra. It didn't stick with me. It didn't stay in my collection, but it's one that it's one of those weird times. This happens occasionally where I play a game where even though I recognize I won't table it as much, I recognize how good that game is. From all the games I'm talking about in this category of the games that weren't for me in November 2023, I think Halls of Hegra is the one I would most recommend you give a shot if you are solo-minded at all. If you're not a solo player, you can skip on it. We have Fisheries of Gloucester. Now, Fisheries of Gloucester, small box game from Dr. Finn. I enjoyed it. It was a fun little puzzle of laying out paths and trails and trying to figure out how to score better than the other players in the game. It was a fun little game. Again, lots of other games out there. Too many games, but I did enjoy Fisheries of Gloucester. And then lastly is Challengers Beach Cup. I don't remember if I've talked about Challengers in general, but Challengers Beach Cup was the new version of Challengers. I like the auto battling system. I like Challengers Beach Cup. In a perfect world, I would have all the games. I've enjoyed playing those systems. I like it. It's fun just grabbing more cards, adding them to your deck, and being like, ooh, what new cards can I add in as I auto battle? I really like the system. I just won't table it over other games. Which brings us to the category of November 2023 games that I kept but then left the collection. As usual, my personal goal is to have this category as small as possible. It inevitably will have games. It's the nature of trying things out, holding on to them, but usually I'm trying to... For me personally, I'd rather hold on to games. I don't mind if the 5 years later games leave. I don't mind that. But I'd rather that a game not be leaving within a year of me having already decided that I'm keeping it. It will happen, but I want to keep this number as small as possible because I want to get better at either saying no right away, meaning I can appreciate a game is good and say I don't have space for it in my collection. Or alternatively, loving a game and adding it. I'd like them to stay. My ideal would be games that I keep stay for 3+ years. But again, things will inevitably be here. In this case, we only have one game here, which is small enough for me to be fine with it. We have Nova Aetas Renaissance. This is a big box game from Ludus Magnus Studio. It's a campaign experience. I played it. I enjoyed it, which is the problem. This is the problem with these campaign games. I enjoyed it, but then down the road when I was doing a campaign game purge, I realized I have 30 campaign games and I don't have time for all of them. And so I purged another 10 or 11 of them, and Nova Aetas Renaissance is one that did leave in that campaign game purge. Again, it's just the, I think that video actually went up yesterday if I'm not mistaken, but it's the reality of enjoying certain types of games and recognizing that there's a difference between pulling a game off the shelf once a year and justifying owning it that way versus a campaign game where I have to give a lot more time to justify its existence. And in the case of Nova Aetas Renaissance, despite enjoying it, it is lower down on my campaign game list. And then lastly, the games in the category that I've kept. So these are from November 2023. I kept them and they are still here. We have 4. We have the Art Project from the Op. I really enjoy that one. I do not anticipate it staying forever, but it's one that I still do pull out and play. I think it is, like when I think of the co-op game experiences that I love the most, like the Loop is one that I'd much rather play, but I do find that the Art Project is good enough and I'm still enjoying playing it, that for right now it's sticking around. I assume it'll eventually leave, but not right now. Then we have General Orders World War II over here. This is a delightful experience. It's so good that it surpasses my distaste for modern warfare themes in board games. But I think General Orders is a 2-player. I think there's a solo mode too. I don't know if I've ever played the solo mode. Is there a solo mode? I believe there is. No solo mode, just 2 players. 2-player worker placement game, incredibly well done. I hope they release more content for this. Honestly, I hope they go the Undaunted route and release a new theme for this, because despite how much I like the game, I still don't care for the theme. And I don't know what it is, by the way. Like, it's not like a moral objection. I just don't care for modern war themes in board games. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. But that just is what it is. And again, I like this game despite that. But yeah, that's a General Orders World War II. Then we have Moon Rollers. This one gets an asterisk. In fact, the next 2 gets an asterisk. We have How to Save a World as well as Moon Rollers. These are both prototypes. They get an asterisk because they fall into that weird space where, based on me playing those games, I want both in my collection. But a year has gone by because these are prototypes, and that means I haven't gotten a chance to really see how long they actually stick around. Both of them are games that I do want to add. Both the games that I enjoyed and had fun with. Both of them are games I got like more plays. Both How to Save a World and Moon Rollers, fun fact for you, are games that I played after doing coverage for, which I would say, from all the prototypes I cover, the ones that get played after I finish the coverage, meaning after I've already done the preview, the review, whatever it is, the amount of them that get plays after that, before the final game arrives, maybe 10%. Maybe 10% of my prototypes get that. I find a lot of them just go into that, okay, fine, I'm done, it's time to move on to the next thing. But honestly, and actually that's been true for both Burnt Island games and IV games, both of them have had that happen with several games. The Fall of the Mountain King was a prototype that I played several times after finishing coverage, as well as Mythic Mischief is a game I've tabled tons after playing. So they've actually had both. Brink as well as a game I've played after the coverage. So like, there's been lots of games from those publishers that I've enjoyed enough that I've tabled them in between that I've done coverage and waiting for the final game. Anyways, that is November of 2023, the games that I kept. Which brings us to November of 2019. November 2019 is going to be a much shorter list in the category of games that weren't for me. And by the way, on all of these, I should have said this at the beginning, in all of these, I'm only talking about the games that were new to me in that month. I track my plays on BG Stats. There's a little tag that says when a game was played for the first time by me. And so these are all new to me games. For November of 2019, the games that weren't for me, there was nothing. I don't know what it was about November 2019. By the way, fun fact, November 2019, this is actually where we get to an interesting twist on this series, because November 2019 was the month before I started doing the YouTube for the first time. So technically speaking, as of next month's Where Are They Now, 5 years ago will be covering me as a content creator, not just me as a gamer. Right now, 5 years ago is me covering me as a gamer, which means I was playing less stuff. I've always been a Cult of the New person to a degree, meaning I've always wanted new games, but I certainly play more new games as a content creator than I did as an individual playing board games. And so 5 years ago in general is going to be always a bit smaller right now. Over time, it won't start next month. It takes a while for it to pick up. I think it probably starts actually in roughly a year from now is when I really started to pick up the pace as far as how many new games I was playing. Anyways, 5 years ago, November 2019, the games that weren't for me, nothing in this category. Everything new to me that I played, I definitely enjoyed. As far as the games that I enjoyed but did not need to own, there are 2 over here. There's Clash of Rage. Clash of Rage is a game that, it's from, who's it from? It's from La Botte de Jeu, if I'm not mistaken. But Clash of Rage was a fun, kind of just a attack each other style gameplay. Again, it is good. I have other games that I enjoy more, so I didn't need to keep it, but I definitely enjoyed Clash of Rage. The other one would be Sword of Sorcery. Sword of Sorcery, I remember reading through the 50-page rulebook on a flight to Argentina. I think it's more than 50 pages, and honestly, 50 pages is not that intimidating anymore. I mean, I still don't like it, but it's not like the top whatever. Sword of Sorcery for me ultimately was a game experience that I definitely enjoyed. The problem I had with it is I felt that you spent too much time running the AI. I'm actually very much looking forward to, I believe, what's his name? Tebru announced that they are doing a Sword and Sorcery implementation. I am very much looking forward to that because I think the Sword of Sorcery gameplay with the system running the AI might be a better experience. I'm not entirely sure. Tebru is a system that I both love the idea of it, but also I don't like tablets and apps in my games, so it's been a mixed experience for me so far. here. I am curious how Sword and Sorcery will translate into the taboo system if they're still doing that. But outside of that, Sword and Sorcery is a game that I enjoyed. I thought was very well done, and I didn't like the amount of time I spent running the AI and checking, what they all do, which is something you have to do in some games, and more complicated, nuanced AIs tend to have more rewarding experiences, but more work attached. It's a very well-loved game. I said, you know what, I have enough games, I don't need to invest heavily into this. As far as the games that I kept and then left in November 2019, there are none. All the games that I kept as of November 2019 are still here. And in fact, there are 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken. There is Cartographers over here. Cartographers is a game that I played for the first time in November 2019, and it still is here. Fun fact, if you've been watching the channel long enough, there was a point in time where I said Cartographers was leaving the collection, and I specifically gave the reason. It was like one of my games leaving the collection videos, and I said it, honestly, that I like the game, but trying to track what's going on the board is just a mess. Like, I just can't visually draw all the stuff and track it at a glance. And someone's like, use colored pencils, and I was like, that's a great idea. By the way, this deluxe set comes with colored pencils, but the original Cartographers did not. You draw the shapes, you draw the little tree shapes and the wavy lines, and I couldn't make heads or tails out of what was on my board, so despite enjoying the game, visually I was pulled out of the experience. And someone said, use colored pencils, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try that out. And so the game was actually in a Games Leaving the Collection video, but thanks to viewer feedback, it stayed, and it's still here like 4 years later or 3 years later from whenever I did that. But either way, Cartographers, great game, has stood the test of time for me, still here 5 years later. I should probably get some of the new map packs, but honestly, this is a game that I do still play it, but I don't play it frequently enough that I need all the map packs. I have a bunch, but I don't need everything. But either way, a great game. Then there's also going to be Cthulhu Death May Die. Cthulhu May Die is an excellent game. I'm still eagerly anticipating the new content, which has not shown up yet, but it's an amazing experience. It's not going anywhere. I played it heavily when I first got it. I got like 30-40 plays when I first got it. The first 3 months of it, I dove into it. I now play it less frequently, but every single time I play it, it feels like returning to a dear friend. It is one of my favorite games. It was number 2 on my list of top 100 games of all time as of this past year. Again, I don't play it as much as I would like to, but I love that game. It's a great experience. Cthulhu Death May Die, highly recommend. And then lastly, we have another asterisk over here, which is the Rise of Queensdale. This gets an asterisk because the Rise of Queensdale is not in my collection. And you're like, well, how could it be still in your collection? And the answer there is Rise of Queensdale is a legacy game. I played through the entire thing. I played it for the first time in November of 2019. And here we are 5 years later, and I'm like, I kind of want to play it again. And legacy games fall into this weird spot as far as how I view them in my collection because of that exact problem. But for me, I am happy to play the Rise of Queensdale again. I actively am going to be trying to track it down. And so because of that, I think that despite having gone through the full 20-ish games of the Rise of Queensdale, I hope to dive in as soon as I can, and for me, that counts as a game that still stays in my collection, even though it's technically not here now. But again, if the goal here is to try to tell you how I break up the experiences in terms of how good they are and where they are for me, I think that counts, but you can interpret that how you want. Anyways, that has been your Where Are They Now for the month of November. As always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and until next time, I hope you have a good one.